Hello. Here we are. We're going to talk about C for our users. This is a bit of an odd one in the context of this book club because S- C in R was a chapter in the first edition of Advanced R. So in that chapter, in the first edition, Hadley talked about how to access R's C API and some of the Oh, hey John. We were just started. So I was just saying that doing something a bit unusual for the book club today because C for R is a genuinely advanced R topic. It featured in the first edition of Hadley's Advanced R book, where he talked sort of in some quite nitty-gritty detail about R's C API. But it's also a topic that I've been very interested in from the point of view of encouraging contributors to base R. Um, so when we talked about having a C chapter as part of this Advanced R book group, I thought, well, could either go in and prepare something based on the chapter in the first edition of Advanced R, which kind of gets really into the nitty-gritties, or I could do a more kind of general level overview of why we might want to think about C if we're an R developer and how that interacts with contributing to base R. So I opted for the latter approach. So this is not going to be as technical as some of the other sessions that we have, but it has the advantage of being that I've been able to use some slides for a talk that I've given before. So that's good for me, except that I try to update the slides because there are various slides in the deck that are out of date, but there's been some kind of update to Corto that meant I could not re-render my slides. So, uh, and therefore update them. But I have previously published online and accessible to anyone a previous version of this talk. And so I am left with no option but to present a version from July of last year. And I will let you know the bits that are out of date. So there aren't very many of us here today. So maybe just to help me kind of pitch this a little bit, like what's your experience level in C? John and Stefan, any?
Absolutely zero. So I
Great.
haven't, yeah, have never
Okay,
Yeah.
done
this
anything
talk is
aside.
fit for people who've
Yeah,
never used NEC before.
I took over a package that has a bunch of C in it and have been forced to, I guess I had learned some C a long, long, long time ago. I haven't used it since learning it, so I didn't really learn it. Um,
Okay, okay, I
so
do.
yeah.
I feel justified now in the not going into the nitty-gritties of RC C API and to focus on this more generally. Now I'm going to have a lot of windows and a lot of things in different windows, so I'm going to try and get my screen sharing about right. So, hang on. Yes. So I'm still looking at that camera, but that screen's over there. Okay. I am going to share my screen. Um, and before I do that, I am gonna, there we go. There are my speaker notes. And no, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go Zoom. Sorry, bear with me just a sec. I will gonna share my whole desktop because I am going to be going back and forth with some live coding, some live demos. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to talk about C for our users. Um, this was a version that I gave in July of last year to Our Ladies Philly, but I will tell you what's updated since. So when it comes to contributing to base R, actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just go back so where I can see you for a sec. Have either of you ever contributed to base R before?
No.
Have you ever thought about contributing to base R?
Have I was at a Tidyverse Dev Day that also was one of the Base R hackathon days in the room next door. Um, that's about that's I literally got close to it, I guess, at that point, but I've also thought about looking into it.
Yeah, I I've had this conversation a lot with people because it's literally part of my job to try and get people to contribute to base R. And I hear a lot of reasons why people don't, which is why I like to start with this slide here, which is a photo that was taken at the R project sprint back in 2023 at the University of Warwick, because a lot of people think, oh, contributing to R isn't for somebody like me. And I want to show you this picture and go, it's absolutely for folks like you, whoever you are. If you can write a function, if you can read code, you can contribute to base R. There are some historically logistical hurdles for people to contribute to base R, and a lot of my work has been around, and the work of Heather Turner, my boss, has been around trying to kind of mediate that process. So as well as talking about C for base R, I'm going to talk more generally about contributing to base R. So my background is I am no longer a research software engineer at the University of Warwick. I am now a senior research software engineer at the University of Birmingham. And I did used to work on sustainability and EDI in the R project. That was the name of the grant that Heather and I were working on at Warwick. But now we've moved to Birmingham. We're working on a grant around enabling the next generation of contributors to base R. So it's similar and it's an extension of what we're doing, but part of that work is around mentoring a cohort of expert contributors, but also a lot of work around the governance and community outreach in the R project. So we've got lots of exciting stuff coming up over the next couple of years. As part of the sustainability and EDI in the R project, our goal was to foster a larger and more diverse community of contributors to base R, and that is something that we're taking forward to this next grant as well. So what I want to do in this talk is to encourage you to contribute to base R, encourage you to learn C, show you some C code in base R, and also show you how to contribute to base R in a way that extends beyond C, and to outline the work of the R contribution working group. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to assume you know NEC, and nor am I actually going to try and teach you NEC. And a lot of this is going to be a live demo. So wish me luck. Let's get going on a live demo. So one of the things that's historically been challenging about contributing to base R is to test any changes you make to the source code. You need to be able to build R from source on your computer, and that is a tricky setup. And yeah, there are lots of ways that setting that up for oneself can go wrong. So part of the work that the R contribution working group has done has been to develop a container for contributing to base R, or for kind of playing around with the R source code. So you can get the R source code, you can mess around with it as much as you like, and you're not going to mess anything up for anybody else. So there is a link here to the container. It is, which will take you to a GitHub page, which I have open here. And when you go to this GitHub page, if you scroll down to the R dev container, I might as well be sticking these links in the chat actually as I go, so that you have these for reference later. I mean, it is all in the slides as well, but I'll stick it in the chat. So that's that link here. And if you click on here, opening code spaces, that didn't click for some reason. Why is that not clicking? Here we go, opening code spaces. You'll get a page like this, and it will enable you to create a code space, and you can just click create code space. The thing I would change here is I'm in Europe, so I would check that and I click create code space. That can take a few minutes just to initialize that code space. So I'm not going to do that now, because here is one I created earlier. This is part that I created earlier. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes to set up, maybe not a huge amount of time, but in the space of an hour, we'll leave it. So you create a code space and it looks like this. If you're familiar with VS Code, this should hopefully look familiar. It welcomes us to the R dev container, and it lets you know a couple of things. So you can modify, compile, and use R as described in the R development guide. You get a link here, and it points out some environment variables that have already been set. It comes with a few files that are relevant for the code space, but there is nothing yet in here about R. So I'm going to head back to my slides and show you how we set this up. So we've created a code space, and we're going to, in this code space, build R from source. Now, I want to show you an example. I'm going to use as a demo a bug that used to be in R. It was a bug in R4 up to R4.4. It was fixed in R4.5. Usually, if you're working in the code space, you want to be working on the latest development version of R, and that is what by default you get if you check out from SVN this thing here. So this is the trunk, this is the latest version of RDevel. So for source control, the R project uses subversion and not Git. So this is what this SVN is. SVN checkout checks out a version from subversion. But for the purpose, usually this is what you do, but for the purposes of this demo, I am going to check out R 4.4.3, which is where that bug still existed. So we're going to take that line of code. I'm going to go back to my code space over here and paste it. And it's going to take about a minute to run this code. And it's checking out all of the R source code, and it is popping them into this SVN file. So this is the source code for base R. So if you just ever want to have a look at that and play around with that, that's one way you can get to that. We're going to follow the next step, which is to download the recommended packages. So I am summarizing here the instructions that are displayed in kind of laid out in full in this tutorial, which is linked to here. And then we have this build directory. So we've been checking the things out into the source directory, which is where the scripts go, which is this SVN, but we also have a build directory, which is where we're going to build it. So we're going to paste that too. We're going to make a build directory where the environment flag is and change into that build directory. So now we have this build here. Nothing in it yet. And I'm going to run this line here to configure the build. So this is just some flags that configure how we're going to build R when we get to it. And this is going to run for about a minute. Any questions about what I'm doing so far? We've got a minute to kill. No. All right. So this is going to go for about a minute, and then I'm going to set it off running on building R itself. This takes about 5 to 10 minutes. So while I'm going to leave it building in the background while I go to my slides once we get to this part here. So it's doing a bunch of stuff. We're almost done with it. We let it do its thing. There's something about watching like lots of code appear in my terminal that makes me feel like I'm a hacker in a movie. I like that. Okay, so we're gonna actually I can just type this make. So the make command to build R. This is going to take about 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm just going to leave that in the background doing this and go back to my slides. Right. So we're building R. So what is C and how does it relate to R? So you haven't used C, but I'm going to take it that you probably understand what it is, that it's a low-level, high-performance compiled programming language that provides fine-grained control over memory and hardware. That much of base R is written in C. That's why we're talking about this today. If you want to dig into the internals of R, you're going to hit up against some C code. But also that R provides interfaces to compiled code. And in particular, R has a C API to deal with R objects in C. So why C? Well, as R users and developers, writing C enables us to write efficient and portable code. Although that said, for efficiency, and as a user, almost certainly we would want to be using C++ with RCPP. That's just a much more pleasant experience. It takes care of a lot of the things that are painful about working with C. And if we're wanting to turn to compiled code to speed up our own code, that's probably what we're going to want to do. Although for portability, C is still useful. But as R users or developers, we might still encounter C code when debugging. And as R contributors, if we're comfortable digging down into the C source code, it can help us find the root cause of a bug and even potentially go a step further to propose a patch to the C code to fix a bug or to add a new feature in R. So this is a hex code. It's a 6-digit hex code for the color that we see in the background, and hex codes of this nature with 3 pairs of repeating digits can be abbreviated. So you can write hash 666CB and it be understood that it is intended to expand to this. So just before the R project sprint, which I showed you a photo of at the beginning, the guy who goes by the online moniker of cool but useful had cool but useless, I should say, had the idea, had support for 3-digit hex colors in R. 3 years ago, this did not exist, and he very handily pointed out exactly the lines of code in the source code that would need to change in order to be able to do this, and exactly, what needed to be done. So at the R project sprint, the timing was perfect. This came up just before the sprint. So with a team of about 5 or 6 of us, we worked on doing this. And I want to show you this as a first example of working with C code in R, because we managed to do this whilst knowing very little C. So this was the code as it existed. So first thing we're going to say is, like, how can we tell this is C, apart from recognizing that it's not R? So one thing that we can see is everything here has type declarations. So we are returning something that is an R color. All of these things are described as ints. There are function names that are different. We have kind of different syntax of switch, case 9 cases, and so on. But if we look at that code, even if we don't know a huge amount of C, or indeed any C, even if we don't know exactly what all of these different functions are doing, it should be possible to kind of get our hang on, that's not right. That is not right at all. I've lost some slides. Hang on. For some reason, okay. So if we look at this existing code, we can start pulling out things that might give us a clue about the kind of things that we need to change. So we see a switch statement, for example, that's telling us what we need to do in different cases. And we have this function here, str_len, which gives us the length of a string. So we know we need to deal with lengths of strings because we know we need to be able to take we know we're dealing with trying to deal with shorter strings. And we can see something like here, RGB, so that we can understand that this is dealing with the different color channels, and we're somehow taking the first element of the string. So C is indexed by 0, but the 0th element is the hash at the start. So we're doing something with the first and the second digit. And then if we have a string length of 7, i.e. hashtag and 6 characters, then we're doing this. We can have up to 9 characters because we've got an AA to deal with the alpha channel. But this gives us a kind of a hint at where we might go with this. So one fix is to add cases for when we have shorter strings. And we want to do something that's equivalent to instead of looking at the first and second digit, when we consider it expanded. In the 4-digit case, it's just the first digit twice. So this line in the case of 4 comes down to that line. So with a little bit of programming now, but not a lot of C, it is possible to make that kind of fix to base R. And then the second part of the fix was just to add another case to the return statement down there. So that's how we did it. We made that fix to base R. It was accepted. Well, you can now write 3-digit hex codes in R. First example of why it's kind of cool to know some C in R. This reminds me to check the progress of the dev container. Okay, so let's look at this. It's not done. It's not done. So I will come back to that. I will come back to that in a sec. Remind me in a sec if I forget to come back to it, because we do want to have time to do make check. Okay. There was a bug in the stem function, and in all my years of making slides, I think this is my favorite slide I have ever done for a bug in the stem function. Stem and leaf plot. So this is the bug that was fixed in R4.5, and this is the bug that we're going to fix live in the dev container now. So what used to happen in R less than or equal to 4.4.3 is if you, in some particular edge cases, for example, where you have a 9.96 and other numbers there, that these pipes were not aligned. Line there. So we've got a problem with the stem width, and there is another irregularity as well, in that when you run stem of 2, literally nothing happens, and when you run stem, so if you run stem when n equals 1, like nothing happens. If you run stem of 2, you get 2, but there's no kind of good reason from a coding point of view that for the first line you couldn't have 2 pipe 0. I mean, it's not useful from a data visualization point of view, but there's no reason why you shouldn't have that behavior. And it does seem strange to run a line of code and hit enter and nothing happen at all, in cases where something could happen. So now we're going to dig into this. This is more interesting than the other case, but I'm just going to go back and check this. Okay, so this is done now. So after you've built R, it is always a good idea to run make check, and this just checks that it built correctly. You would hope that for the RDevel version that it would be building properly, but it doesn't always. So we're gonna check it. In this case, it's not RDevel. This is R4.4.3, and I know it does build correctly, but just good practice after running make, always run make check. So I'm gonna leave it to do this. So I'm going to go back to this stem function, because this is the kind of case where we, as people who are using R, might encounter a bug and start digging down to try and fix it. So if we want to see what is happening in the stem function, there is a trick in R that if you type the name of a function into the console without the parentheses and hit enter, it will print out the function code for you. So here we go. Here's the stem function, and it's doing a bunch of checks on the arguments with these various if statements. But then we hit this line here, dot call c underscore stem leaf as dot double other arguments. So there we have it. This dot call function is how we're calling a C function. So this is not where the bug is. the bug is probably somewhere in here. So let's dig down a little bit more. Let's try that. So here's C underscore stem leaf. And if we do that again, type that in the console, hit enter, we get an error. Unfortunately, this displaying the code of a function doesn't work for the internal C, but there are a couple of different ways we can find and inspect this code. So one way is on GitHub. So I did say that R is developed in SVN and not with Git and GitHub, but there is a mirror on GitHub, which is very handy, which allows us to kind of browse the code in a more familiar way. So if we go here to GitHub and we do a search for C underscore stem leaf, here we go. It comes up twice. Once in the graphics.h, which is the header file. That's not what we would need. We need to find it in a .c file. So here we go. Here's C stem leaf. So we've got that there. The other place we can look for it is in our dev container. This is a code space. So we can use the built-in search functions to search for C underscore stem leaf. Although for some curious reason, when I tried this earlier today and again now, that doesn't seem to be working in the code space. It used to work. I don't know why it's not working now. So I will report that as a strange bug now in the code space. But you can do it here. So this is the code of C underscore stem leaf. And this is where we're seeing R's C API. So SEXP are S expressions. And at the C level, all R objects are stored in this common data type, the SEXP or S expressions. And because all R objects are S expressions, every C function that you create or come across in the source code must return an S expression, and it must take S expressions as inputs. So that's what we have here. And now if we start trying to understand this code, again, it might, as a wall, present as something that's like harder to interpret than what we're used to. But if we start reading this, I think we will be able to get our heads around it. So if the type of X is not real, so everything is an S expression, but there are these like subtypes that correspond to the types of objects we're familiar with in R. So if X isn't real, or if scale is not real, then we're going to throw an error. So we can, again, use our programming now to start working our way through some of this. And again, we're finding lots of if statements that are doing various bits of error checking here. And then we find another function. So we are continuing with our detective work here, and we're finding stem underscore leaf, which is calling real X with some other arguments here. So now we have to go and find that. And this, it turns out, is in the same file here. So here we go. This is the function here in that same stem.c, which is where you would expect to find it. And this function is longer and more complicated. And at the point when I first presented this work, so the Our Ladies for Leads talk is a longer version of a talk that I gave in user in 2024. And at that point, we had identified this bug and wanted to fix it. And we had got to that point and we had found this. If n less than or equal to 1, return false. So that seemed to be how we dealt, gives us a way to deal with not getting any output when we have a vector of length 1. And we found some comments that directed us to the parts of the code where we find the print width of the stem and where we find the starting cell. That was the point that we'd got to the first time I presented this. So let's do a live demo of working in the dev container to fix this case. So here we go. We have run make, we've run make check, and everything is okay. And there was a 7th step on the slide. There was one more thing we needed to do. I'm not going to go all the way back to there, but that is to do which R. And this which underscore R is going to give us the option to determine when we run R in the container, which version of R do we want to run. And it will give us 2 options. It will give us R 4.4.1, which is the release version built into this container. So as you can see, this container, the version of R in the dev container is a little bit out of date, or 2, RDevel. Now, in our case, RDevel is a bit of a misnomer because we haven't checked out RDevel. We've checked out R 4.4.3, but that's what it thinks is RDevel in this case. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hit 2 here so that we're working with the checked out version that we have. Okay. So now if we're in the container and we want to start working with R, we see at the little bottom here, there's R not attached. Can you see that on your screens? Yep. So if we click R not attached, it will attach it. So now we're in the code space and we're working with R, and I'm going to call stem of 2, and nothing is going to happen. Okay, so this is the buggy version. So we are going to fix this, and we're going to do this by finding the file, which annoyingly I couldn't get to with search, but I know it's in SVN, so it's the checked out source code. It's in the source. It's in one of the libraries. It's in the graphics library. It's the source of the graphics library, and it's stem.c. And I know that because I've done this a few times, but also I showed you previously, where has it gone? Here we can see that path here as well that I got to there. So here is the source code, and here on line 61 are these lines if n less than or equal to 1 return false. So I'm going to delete them. And delete that. We have edited the R source code, the base R source code. So I'm going to quit out of R here. I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to hit make again because we need to rebuild R with our changes. And whereas before it took 5 to 10 minutes, here when we hit make again, it's only going to change the things that have changed. So that's going to be quite quick. This is going to take less than a minute to do. I would at this point typically want to run make check again to check that I haven't broken anything with my changes. But I'm not going to do that. That still takes the same 3 to 5 minutes. And I do know that I haven't broken anything with that change. So, so I've done that. And now I want to, sorry, I lost my R not attached. So now let's attach R again. And we're still working with our development. And if we go now stem of 2, we've got a stem leaf part. Isn't that magic? We fixed R in the source code. So that's cool. So now what? We've made a fix. It's in our dev container. What do we do with that? So if this is oh, shoot, I still have my emails up. Okay. Let me go back to my slide. So we have done this. We have fixed that case. And now we want to create a patch. And the way we do that is we were working in our build directory. So we want to go, so I'm going to quit out of our in the dev container. And let's go back to the source directory. No, that's the wrong. So we're going to do cd tops. No, that's cd top source directory. And then we're going to run this command to make a patch file. So we're going to call the svn. So this is within svn, we're going to call diff, and we're going to pipe that into the patch directory. And we were given that environment variable at the start. And we're going to call it something useful. And in this case, it corresponds to a bug that was listed on Bugzilla. So we're going to give it the bug number from Bugzilla. And then we're going to say that it's this part where we're fixing the ed equals 1, because there were other parts of the bug. So we're going to do that. We're going to run that to create that patch. And we're just going to check that. So if we now list what's in the patch directory, sure enough, we have this file in our patch directory. So let's go and take a look at that there. So we are in our patches, and here's our patch. We have deleted these lines. That's our patch. Okay, but this still is just in our dev container. To get it out of our dev container, we can right-click on it and download it. We're going to allow that download. And now I have, amongst much other bump on my computer, this downloaded patch file. There we go. We've created a patch for base R. Now we need to submit it. And the way that we would do that is on Bugzilla. So Bugzilla is how our core team track bugs. Again, this is something that has maybe historically been a little bit of a barrier towards enabling contributions, because people are much more familiar with the GitHub workflow for this kind of thing and issue tracking there. But bugs.rproject.org is how the R core team do it, and anyone can get an account there, although you do have to apply for one. It's not, you can't just go to the website and sign up for one yourself. You do have to email to request it. And at this point, I'm going to point you in the direction of the R Dev Guide, which is a book that is all about how to contribute to the R development guide, all about how to contribute to base R, and it talks you through every single part of this workflow, from the building different versions, reporting bugs, submitting feature requests, all of that kind of stuff. It's all in there. So if you're curious about the other part of the bug fix, the aligning the pipes, we fixed that too. It was a little bit more fiddly, but if you're interested in the C code that did that, you can see it either in the commit or in the patch that we submitted to Bugzilla. But there it is. There's a patch there. Okay, so how can you learn more about this? Assuming that you want to, assuming I've whetted your appetite for contributing to base R. There are various ways, but this is not one of them. We are no longer, the C study group has been and gone. I've put here a list of resources around our C API, including the first edition of Hadley's book. There's also a very in-depth chapter in the Deep R book on how to work with it. And Davis Vaughan wrote an absolutely superb blog post called Now You See Me, that go through the process of doing this in a package, in the context of the package. And then some other things here, the writing R extensions, like the kind of like the canonical reference from the R core team, as well as Hadley's GitHub repo, where he just kind of keeps track of what he's learned about this as he's in his development work. So all of these links you can get to all of these through the slide deck. And if you're interested in learning like the nitty gritty of it, like, all about all the different S expressions and the like, and how you call them, you can find them in these resources. But I also want to tell you a little bit about the R Contribution Working Group. So it was created in July of 2020 with around 25 people coming together from our core, our foundation, Forwards, the R Consortium's Diversity and Inclusion Group, R Ladies, Python Core, and the wider R community. And it was driven by this question, how do we foster a larger and more diverse community of contributors to base R? And it came up with kind of three basic areas that needed improving. Then we needed supportive infrastructure, opportunities to learn, and opportunities to contribute. So on the supportive infrastructure, we have improved communication through creating a contributor.rproject.org website. This is a screenshot here. This is now out of date. This was an old Jekyll version of the site. It's now been fully updated to Corto, but contributor.rproject.org is your go-to place for learning anything that you want to know about how to contribute to base R. Another major area of contribution is in translations. So all of R's messages are in English, written in English, but there's been a huge amount of work going into translating those into a wide number of other languages. So that's another area that the R Contribution Working Group works on, is working on the whole translation interface. And there's this translate.rx.studio that's a web interface for translating messages. The R Dev container has been part of the work, and obviously you have seen that as part of this talk. In terms of opportunities to learn, there's the R development guide, which I showed you briefly earlier. So that's an opportunity to learn if you want to do so in your own time. There have been a number of tutorials, particularly there were Use R in 2021 and 2024, and those have been recorded. All the materials, they're available through the links on these pages. And then in terms of opportunities to contribute, we have our contribution office hours. Again, this slide is outdated. We are just changing the times of them. They have been on Thursdays. They're about to shift to Tuesdays. They will still be in 2 different time zones in order to be like accessible to folks in different parts of the world. But these are really like lovely informal opportunities to work on any aspect of contributing to R. And there have been a number of patches and bug fixes that have come out of that. So these are kind of like nice opportunities to come along to chat to me and Heather and various members of our core who may or may not be able to attend, or other contributors about questions that you might have. They're open to absolute newbies contributing to R through to our core. So they're a really nice way to get involved in this. We have our dev days. Again, this is now out of date because these ones have all passed. But if you go to the contributor project and you look at events and our dev days and sprints, these are the ones that are actually coming up. So there's going to be one at Rencontre R, there's going to be another one at Cascadia R, anyone coming to use R, there's going to be one happening there in Warsaw, and then very excitingly another 3-day. So we haven't done this since 2023, but later this year there's going to be a 3-day R project sprint in Birmingham, with funding, with a lot of funding for people to come. So that's one if you're interested in coming along to work with a wide range of people on our contribution tasks. You can do that there. By the way, I didn't write this page. I did not put my own photo on the website, but that does actually happen to be me and Kelly Bodwin working with Martin Meckler on the STEM bug fix. So that was taken in Salzburg in 2024. Right, I'm almost there. There you go. These are links. The best place to find out anything is on this contributor.rproject.org site. follow along on Mastodon at hatchydam.io/@r_contributors to kind of be kept in the loop about upcoming events, and at present they're all announced on and scheduled through meetup.com as well, so you can follow us there. Don't contact me at that address. I'm no longer at that address. If you want to contact me, I will put that in the chat. There we go. That's me on C for R users. And I would love to chat more about absolutely any aspect of that. So ask me questions, make comments, anything you want on any of that.
That was very, very cool.
Thanks.
A lot to like absorb. So, I mentioned that I inherited this package that has a bunch of C code in it. And like as I go forward with it, I'm trying to decide, do I like continue to use C or start using probably C++ or maybe Rust as a more maintainable, like, not so low level, still low level, but not so low level that it's such a pain to, or not, I don't know, it's just very different. I don't know that that's really relevant to your talk per se, but it's something that I've been thinking about. Like right now, I'm not ready enough to change it. Like changing it would be a big pain. But it feels like one of these things that the more I maintain it, the more I'm going to be like, why am I giving myself all this overhead? That, you even mentioned like C++ is going to be more efficient.
Yeah, in the context of packages, then
Yeah,
certainly C++ or as the infrastructure for Rust
I
improves,
might have to.
then
I might have to dig through the history and figure out like why did he do it in C? So other than maybe that was what he knew how to do.
Yeah, indeed, and it
Yeah,
can be very portable.
yeah.
I mean, I suppose there's an if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of argument.
Right.
It's broken,
Yeah.
and if you need to fix it, then
I'm
yeah.
actually like I'm almost definitely going to move some of what it does into a different package and then import that package into this package. And so at that point, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so as I understand it, working with the the the, the there is a long and well documented and well working history of using RC++ in packages. And that just works nicely. Obviously Rust is much newer, and I think there's a little bit more of a headache. I missed the meetup last time, so I don't know if that was something that you covered then, working with.
Yeah, people are really gung-ho on like Rust, the language itself is apparently really nice to work with.
Yes.
But the interface with R still feels pretty clunky, so probably won't go there.
Yeah, so one of the so I mentioned at the start that the new grant that I'm working on is working to mentor an expert, a set of expert contributors. We're buying out their time and our core time to get those mentee relationships going. And one of the expert contributors is very keen on Rust and really wants to work on improving the interplay between Rust and R. So I don't know if that's something that he's going to be able to do over the course of the next couple of years.
Right.
Buy-in from our core on that, but there is somebody who wants to do it, who is now very well placed to do so.
That's definitely interesting. So I do think, like, just in general, I think the plan is to keep it as is until there's a good reason to move to something else. But it's I'm like, well, I need to learn to do something else. I guess I'm going to learn C because I really like this package. So it's
Yeah,
all
and
crazy. Yeah.
it's fun to do so in the context of um, doing the the C for our users book club. Um, we spend the last month of that working through. So the first 5 months just learning C using Harvard's CS50 materials, which are superb for learning the language. And then in the last month of the book club, we look at our C API and in particular the Deep R book and Davis's blog post, which go through how to do it in a package. And one of the tasks that I gave myself as part of that was to rewrite some of the rep function in C. Just for myself as a challenge and put it in a package. So if you're interested in sort of what I did there, I can show you the link for that. But in doing that, I found some bugs in the rep function, which I was then able to go and fix. So it's like nice how these things sort of like circle around. So yeah, yeah. Sorry. I saw there was something in the chat about
Roxido, huh?
That was just recently a talk that I attended because I was curious about the use of Rust and how it works. And the speaker was working on the Roxido package that helps with integrating Rust with our packages. I cannot speak. There's like alternatives. And I don't know if there's a recording of the talk, but I thought I'd just share it because I was aware of it.
Yeah.
I have a totally different question that's kind of C adjacent. And it's related to compiling our package, and I still can't fully grok the make file. What is it? Make vars? Is that right? The basically make file that is used by R to.
I really want. Sorry, I clicked on a YouTube. I googled that talk title and clicked on a YouTube. It looks like was it David B. Dahl? Was that his name?
That sounds right, yes.
Okay, so this was given at it's a talk with the same title. It was given at a different conference.
Okay, I see.
So that's that talk from yeah, from a conference in 2024.
Okay.
I've updated it in the last year or so, but that's bad.
I was just saying the make vars file always throws me because I don't really understand how it works. It kind of defines which compiler to use and maybe and what arguments. Do you know a good resource for that that kind of walks you through how to set that up? And I don't even have a mental model to understand because it seems like you almost for every package you want to compile, you need to make a different make vars file, or is that wrong? Like depending on what dependency it has?
This is one of the beautiful things, at least in the context of developing R, of working in the R dev container, because that's all kind of set up perfectly for you there. In the R dev guide, the book, there are instructions for how to create that file if you are setting it up to build R from source locally on your own computer. So the instructions are there, but those are like specific make files for specific operating systems to do this specific task in terms of actually learning how make files work. I don't know of a good resource for that.
Okay.
The last time I was trying to do something along those lines was a couple of years ago. And at that point, whenever I got stuck, I asked Claude. And Claude yeah, things that seemed sensible and worked.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. We're a couple of minutes to the hour, John. Do you want to like wrap up the book club
Yeah. This was like the last time I went through this book, I don't think the second edition had actually been released. It was like basically done, but I think some things still changed before or after we did the club. And that was the first club that we did of this like new family of book clubs for data science learning community. So this was really nice. I liked going back through when I have way more experience in working in R and kind of seeing what else I pick up. But yeah, and we, this was a great group. I think we had a lot of good discussions. So very happy to have done this.
Yeah, thank you
Um,
so much for putting it on. I wish I could have attended more. It's just like the
yeah,
time slot in this time zone just hasn't been good for me, but I've really enjoyed the sessions I've been able to make it to.
that is great. So yeah, I will have a survey that I'll send out of basically asking for thoughts about the club. And other than that, I will see everybody, I guess, in the next club. Or
Is it
not,
likely
but
to be
we'll
in
see.
the same time slot?
No. I don't know what I will do, but it'll depend on what people or the time slot, always depends on what people sign up for. So
Yes.
um it will be like during the workday in the US, but mornings are actually better for like early morning is actually better for me if that's what works out. So
If early or
uh
morning,
right. Early my morning would be like,
what in my afternoon
normal.
normal working
Yeah.
hours. Yeah.
So we'll see. I think I want to take a little bit of a break and get some like use this time that I've been using, I'm doing work development time, and use it to do some actual development on open source packages, and then I'll come back, see what I need. Anyway, but all that is to say, this has been great, and I look forward to learning more with everyone in the future.
Likewise. Well, I hope our paths continue to cross. I'm sure they will.
All right.
All right, take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Bye.
Bye.